All right, before we begin this episode of the Indieheads podcast, I want to address the situation, the ongoing situation. So, if you follow our Twitter at IndieheadsPod, you might have noticed that we made a tweet on that account recently. This is not the music puzzle thing. This is about another fellow podcast or another soon-to-be podcast. Of course, us in the Indieheads podcast, we are generally fans of the work of Stephen Hayden and Ian Cohen, but the two of them are starting a new podcast, which sounds great. Sounds good. Two really good writers doing a podcast about music.
And
Seems
they've
like a
had
great
two
idea.
episodes together on a Celebration Rock before.
Exactly. Seems like a great idea. Where the fucking issue begins, though, is that they're calling it Indiecast. Now, I'm not sure if y'all have noticed, but our podcast is called the Indieheads Podcast, which if you shorten it down, you could call it Indiecast. So, Mr. Hayden, Mr. Cohen, Mr. Uprocks, what the fuck? What the fuck? Why are you stealing our fucking... What? We've been doing this podcast for almost 6 years now, and you're coming through stealing our fucking shit. What the fuck? Okay, we've been working hard for 6 years. We've been building a brand. We've been putting out content for so many years, podcasts, videos, articles, lists. We've been working at this for so many years, and you're gonna come and swoop in and steal our shit, stomp on our territory. Okay, I don't know where your loyalties lie, listeners, but you need to stick with us. Okay, as much as we appreciated the work of Mr. Hayden and Mr. Cohen, I'm not fucking taking this lying down. We are officially declaring war on IndieCast. If I catch one of you motherfuckers listening to IndieCast, that's it. We are done professionally, personally. I'm blocking you. I'm gonna put you on a list. I'm gonna make up some news. Actually, I'm gonna make up some news, and I'm gonna send the fucking Swifties after you. Okay, those Swifties, they're fucking pissed off right now, and I'm gonna take advantage of that. Okay,
They're ready to use their hatred.
exactly. They're gonna call you a bunch of homophobic slurs, and you can't do anything about it. So, fuck you, Uprocks. Fuck you, Stephen Hayden. Fuck you, Ian Cohen, and fuck the lawyers that probably searched to figure out if IndieCast was a good name and didn't consult us first to give us permission to use the name. Now, there is a way to resolve this issue. There's only one potential resolvement of this issue. If you are listening, Mr. Stephen Hayden, Mr. Ian Cohen, or anyone that works at or does any kind of work for Uprocks, all you have to do is just invite me onto the podcast. That's all you have to
do. Well, you'll get your greedy.
Otherwise, if you do not invite me on your podcast, I'm a lovely guest to have on a podcast. I'm a lovely guest. So if you don't have me, that's it. We're done. I'm going to send my fucking lawyers after you, and there's nothing you're going to do about it. The Swifties, I'm sending the BTS army for your fucking ass, okay?
And it'll get the Nicki Minaj fans into there too.
I'll get the barbs. I'll get the fucking barbs after you. I'll get them. I'll get all the stands to eat to fucking eat shit in order to take you down.
Joe Casey warned us about a haunted a bald lawyer haunting teen punk shows, and now he's haunting podcasters too. He's stealing our podcast.
So
that is
still
the most savage burn.
So that is all I have to say about the IndieCast situation. All right, consider yourself warned, okay? And please email me at mattymo22097@gmail.com to invite me on your podcast, or DM me on Twitter at @MonrovianPrince to invite me on your podcast. It's that simple, okay? I'm a digital influencer, baby. You gotta bring me on.
Gets exactly one job. And lets it all go to his head. What's happened?
Are we done with the bit now?
Okay, we're done with the
Love this one.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Indieheads podcast. I'm your host, Matty, aka at Monervian Prince on Twitter. On this episode of the podcast, we have Rose.
Hello.
We got Dill.
Hey.
We got Jackson.
Hello.
We got Nat.
Hey.
Alrighty. So, okay. Enough about the IndieCast situation. I've said all I need to say. But welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back. Another episode for y'all. We were hoping to get one out mid-July, but Zencastr was really fucking stupid, which sucks too because it was gonna be a really good episode, but fucking Zencastr had a fuck up on us. But here we are. We're gonna do a classic style episode. We're gonna go back to the old format that we used to have for the first couple of years of the podcast, and talk about some news, talk about some singles, what we've been listening to, and then sort of a general roundup of some releases that have come out in the past month or so, and also maybe some stuff that we missed for the quarter two catch up. So let's just get to the fucking news, baby. And then we got some good news here. So if you have known since the pandemic started, or really around the time, basically on the first Friday of each month, Bandcamp has been hosting Bandcamp Fridays, where they basically, whatever cut they get from sales, they're giving it back to artists, labels, etc. And after only doing them for a couple of months, it seemed like they'd be, once July was the last one, that'd be it. They're continuing them for the rest of the year. So first Friday of August, October, September, etc. Till the end of the year, they're going back to doing these Bandcamp Friday events. And they generally also had some cool little stats and whatnot, as on all these Bandcamp Fridays, combined, there was $20 million of sales that went directly in the pockets of artists and labels. And overall, Bandcamp has done some tremendous numbers. Since March, they have bought more than $75 million worth of music and merch directly from artists and labels via Bandcamp. And to date, according to them, fans have paid artists over $500 million on Bandcamp, and that's from the article they put out on Bandcamp Daily, which is, I mean, this. I want to start with some good news because it's just like, this is just incredible. It's incredible to see, like, if there's any industry that's been hit possibly the hardest, like any entertainment industry that's been possibly the hardest by the pandemic, it's definitely the music industry. So to see like fans and artists and labels basically, like, especially Bandcamp, maybe the only good like streaming platform / like digital distribution channel in terms of just their transparency and in terms of supporting artists, like just maybe one of the only good ones out there. Just to see them step up to the occasion has been incredible to see, and the fact that like these Bandcamp Fridays are so successful is really crazy to see. Sadly, I haven't been able to do support the last two ones just because I've been on the verge of going destitute for a little bit, but I mean, this is just incredible to see.
Yeah, it rules a lot, and I've been enjoying having a sort of scheduled opportunity to be like, oh, I'm gonna buy some music now, and like making that more a part of my regular routine than it already was. I've bought some really great stuff on Bandcamp so far this year, stuff that I've been enjoying, and a couple of things that I just kind of bought blind. There's a really good RNS Records compilation that I liked that was to benefit the NHS, and there was that House of ALTR compilation that I talked about last episode, and some other good stuff I've copped on Bandcamp. And it's just support art, pay people for their work. It's a good thing to do. I like to do it.
Yeah.
The independent artists care about, support them.
Yeah. I know I've definitely been using it as an opportunity to drop more money on Bandcamp when I'm able to, and I think it's also from just seeing it from a listener standpoint. It's cool how many different musicians kind of use it as an opportunity to throw out a bunch of just stray loose things, and I've there's just been a number of different like rarities and other releases that probably wouldn't have seen the light of day, that people are just kind of throwing out just because so many people are drawing their attention to it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, I guess we could use this little space just to. If there's any albums that I mean, I guess we'll kind of do it throughout the episode, just some albums we're listening to and stuff to support. But like I said, a bunch of really cool exclusives that have dropped during this time. There's the Black Midi live album that came out. That was really cool. Because I miss my Gremlin boys so much. I miss them very dearly. And then along with like Black Midi, there was the Live at the Windmill album that the Windmill label put out that apparently did really, really well. Tons of really great artists on there. Obviously, previously mentioned Black Midi, Cape Tempest, Goat Girl, Fontaines DC, Scotty Brains, and then the supergroup pairing of Black Midi and Black Country New Road, and the jam they did at the Windmill. So, again, Windmill, it's probably the saddest thing about not living in England is probably like not being able to go to a venue like the Windmill, where like consistently you're seeing like these artists who are just like on the cutting edge, just putting together like this incredible new music, just stuff that you haven't really heard before. So
all of our finest
yeah.
Gremlin musicians live in the United
All
Kingdom.
our fine, the Gremlins. Oh, God, they're so. You know, have you heard the Gremlins? You know, they're so.
Wasn't he a
so
cameo
good.
in one of the Gremlins movies? Like the New
No,
York
that was.
one?
I don't think so.
Because he
I
was
don't-
like he was cameoing in like any New York comedy where they were like, here's the fancy building.
Okay, true. I mean, if I looked, I would probably find and see that he's in there. But I nevertheless, Bandcamp Fridays again, next one August 7th. So if you are able to support any artists, if you have money, I know times are tough. Like I said, I only just started going back to work recently, and I imagine there's probably some other people that are still out of a job or their unemployment's running out. So if you have money to support artists, definitely obviously recommend doing participating in these Bandcamp Fridays, as hopefully this encourages the industry at large to sort of take this as an example. And streaming services, Spotify especially, start paying artists fair fucking royalty rates, you dumb motherfuckers. Jesus Christ, don't put a fucking tip jar. Oh, we're on a tip jar. Don't fucking do that. Start fucking paying ours fairly, Stop. You got money. You got all the venture capital in the fucking world, okay? Start paying ours fairly. Goddamn. It's as simple as that. But first, some news that is I necessary. This is news that is very necessary, and maybe Jackson, you might. I mean, I'm not sure how familiar you are
Not
with the scene.
I could just sort of intro it because I have been aware of Burger Records from a long time, but always from a distance. Not to be one of those people that's like, oh, I never liked them when something bad comes out, because those people are the worst also. But yes, there was a story recently about Burger Records and a number of allegations that came out against people who worked for Burger Records and also artists affiliated with Burger Records. And basically, after these mass accusations, they tried to rebrand and restructure and transform Burger Records, and basically that completely fell on its face due to the fact that this thing was just clearly kind of a toxic environment that had been allowed to get this way, and instead of trying to salvage it, they ended up realizing they just kind of had to let this thing die, which is not something I'm particularly beaten up about, but also it really does kind of reflect just the sad reality that just because you're quote unquote indie doesn't mean that you are at all free from the same kinds of misogynistic bullshit that like happens in any kind of industry. And this sort of thing has been I mean, it hasn't been well known of these particular allegations, but the general kind of atmosphere around this particular kind of LA indie band and the scene of the whole Burger Records affiliated kind of uh larger umbrella of artists, and that whole all those kind of just really some of the worst indie rock fans I've met are like big Burger Records people. And that's a generalization to make, but I think it really is rooted in kind of a somewhat toxic environment that was created there, and clearly was revealed through this story and all the allegations that came out against the people that were working there and the kind of values that were not being upheld there. And so I think that it's good that this story came out, and it's good that they are not trying to just kind of I hope that all the artists that were signed to Burger Records or who were not implicated in the story are able to go on to find other, because I mean, it sucks to lose your record company and whatever, but like a lot of the artists themselves were implicated in some of the things, and so
Yeah,
it's
but I mean,
really
there were some executive decisions like before they just dissolved completely that were a little bit transparently like PR stuff, like the Burr
oh
Girl
yeah.
imprint.
That was
Ugh.
oh my god. Yeah, that's just not that's really not reading the room at all. And it's very common that these people, of course they can't read the room, because if they were able to read the room, they wouldn't have had to be responding to these accusations in the first place. Like, it's just a complete either malicious or ignorant lack of understanding of these kinds of things. And either way, it's like we don't really have the patience to be dealing with that kind of bullshit anymore. And so I'm glad that it's kind of gone this way. I also fucking hate the Growlers and hated working their concerts the couple of times I had to do that while I was working at the Wiltern, because everyone gets absolutely fucking hammered at those shows, which I don't understand, because they're not like, I don't know, their music doesn't make me want to get like shit canned, but I guess some people that's like their thing. Yeah. Anyways, whatever. Good riddance.
Yeah, I mean, we should state more. I mean, obviously, there's like some people, obviously, like the co-founders of Burger Records were implicated in their own stuff, either by either sort of basically covering up for these bands or participating in some of these acts themselves. But the account on Instagram at Lord by Burger Records underscores, where there would be spaces. Um, that's probably if you want to find out more about the story and about some of the artists implicated in this, definitely find that account. It's a good resource where people were able to tell their stories. Again, number of artists, as you mentioned, the Growlers, the Buttertones, Black Lips, Swimmers, Love Cop, Part Time, Gap Dream, Audacity, Tomorrow's Tulips, Cosmonauts, The Frights, and probably a number of other bands. Or fuck, No Bunny just got they outed themselves as an abuser and basically shut down their own band because they were like, fuck, I'm gonna get outed soon, so might as well get the jump. But yeah, and then some of these stories were like I said, some of these stories, again, from what I've heard and just the general vibes of that scene, it was just like it was something that was obviously very sad and very depressing to watch. Although it's like hard to be too surprised, and I try not to say that in a way that's like demeaning to the victims. It's just like it always seemed like kind of a scummy scene, and hopefully, it's over, because I mean we're seeing this obviously. Hopefully this does mean we do, because I mean this is probably not the only music scene that is like this. There's
Oh,
probably
100%. Yeah.
hundreds of music scenes that are like this. Tons of scummy dudes out there. I mean, recently, for any pro wrestling fans, there was the speaking out movement among the pro wrestling world, where a number of women and some men spoke out against a number of wrestlers. Some popular indie wrestlers, some people that were in WWE, spoke out against them, and various abuses and stuff. And like I said, if there's any time to do this stuff, I mean, it's probably now, because like no one's playing shows, no one's getting booked. So whatever, I think I think the pandemic has probably caused these allegations to come out, because I think like there's not as much risk in coming out with these accusations now, because it's just like, oh, what, these bands are going to blacklist me from playing shows at this venue? No one's playing fucking shows at this venue, so you know that's my logic, at least, for understanding some of the stuff. But yeah, this is probably, again, it's not the first time something like this has come out, and it's sure as hell not going to be the last. But yeah, it's like I said, it's news that I can't say is good. It's very necessary, and that if we're going to, once things are able to, not necessarily once we're able to get out of this mess we're in right now because of the pandemic, I hopefully we're able to build across the United States and across really the world generally, better music scenes that are better to women and victims, and getting these fucking creeps out of these music scenes, because I don't want to hear your fucking problems. All right, Ricky, I don't want to hear your problems when so many women have come out against you. So yeah.
Without being too flippant, I do want to share the Charlie Bliss tweet that I really love, in which Charlie Bliss, responding to the news of Burger Records closing, says, now where am I supposed to turn when I'm in need of an all-male garage rock band where every member looks like that one guy from Workaholics and every song is called something like Goth Babe, parentheses, still drunk.
Hey, that just about says it, folks. That
Can we
that
can
just
we
about says it.
can we just note really quickly that like every band on Burger Records had the exact same fucking name to it? Like all of them were named like Drunk Stepdad or like Horny Grandma or like some
Horny
like I don't fucking know. I feel like I've met like each one of these dudes at a fucking house show, I
Yeah.
like you if you put a gun to my head and ask me to name like 5 Burger Records bands, I could not do it. I would make some shit up and just hope that like I was
I think there's
right.
only one person in the entire pod who could actually perform that task.
Oh God. Okay. Let's wrap. Let's I guess wrap this up. Although, like I said, the Burgers Records. I mean, Jackson already mentioned it, but again, the attempts to rebrand and restructuring, and like I said, luckily that failed because I mean, like I said, there's no recovering for something like this. Like you can't recover. Like you're all implicated in this too much. It was just like I said, just so
Yeah.
tone deaf, so awful. Although there's only one like possibly bad thing from this. From what I saw on Indieheads about this, Burger was essentially like one of the only. It was like basically like one of the biggest tape labels, like in the U.S. It was one of the only places that was doing like mass distribution of tapes. So I do wonder what happens from there. With because I mean they were doing tapes even for bands that weren't on like the Burger Records label, just like for subsidiaries or just like generally doing pressings for most people. So I do wonder what happens from there with that giant distribution arm of cassette tapes. But that's a very small worry to have. But well, again, hopefully we'll have more for you in the future. Hopefully, but I mean the story, like I said, it's probably not the end of the story. There's probably gonna be more bands that get implicated, probably more scenes. So yeah, that's I think that about does it. Fuck Burger Records, rest in piss, fuck off. Um, yeah, but let's get to our last bit of news that we'll discuss on the pod before we get to the single alert. There are 2 shortlists that are out for for some yearly prizes that usually highlight some pretty good music. The British and Irish Mercury Prize and the Canadian Polaris Music Prize. Both of the 2020 shortlists are out now, and some interesting records on here. Some really good ones, some ones, and then some interesting snubs. So we'll start with the British and Irish Mercury Prize shortlist, and the list of albums that are on here are Anna Meredith, Fibs, Charlie XCX, How I'm Feeling Now, Dua Lipa, Future Nostalgia, Georgia, Seeking Thrills, Kano, Hoodies All Summer, Lanterns on the Lake, Spook the Herd, Laura Marling, Song for Our Daughter, Michael Kiwanuka, Moises Boyd, Dark Matter, Porridge Radio, Every Bad, Sports Team, Deep Down Happy, and Stormzy, Heavy is the Head. The most notable snub is I'm surprised that the new FK Twigs album is not on here. I wasn't a fan of it by any means, but I'm like surprised it didn't make it on here.
Did it not get nominated last year? Was it after the deadline for that point?
No, it came out in like
came out like
November. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. It was a lot later in the year than I thought. For some reason, my brain was like, that came out in September, right?
So that's the most notable snub I can think. It's like,
But of the ones on here, like Porridge Radio and Laura Marling are both pretty good.
yeah, I'm happy to see Porridge Radio made it on here.
Me too.
Yeah, of all the picks, that one's probably the best.
I if I had to pick a favorite, I might go for the Charlie XCX album, but that's just by look, we discussed this on the last.
Yeah, we discussed it. That's why I don't want to get into it again.
but I really like that album. And so, but yeah, FK Twigs. Like I said, I don't know if I got to discuss this on the pod, but I do not like Magdalene. I think it's not a very good album. I think it's I won't say
I
bad, but I'm not a fan of it at all.
I can't believe you, Matty. I can't believe you. I'm gonna
I'm
gonna
not happy with it either. Like, but it's not terrible.
I'm gonna send your the gif of you holding the baseball bat with the shades on. That's how mad I am right now.
Okay. Oh god, see, it just reminded me because there was the 2019 rate on Indieheads earlier this year, and like literally every album except for the Wise Blood album, I was like, oh wow, all these albums are bad except for Wise Blood.
Fuck you! Don't make me argue about John Congleton again. I swear to God.
My problems with that album are like it's like John Congleton. He's only a bit of the problems I have with all
Part of it.
He's only part of it, okay. But I don't, like I said, Big Thief. I think I've said this on the pod, but Big Thief, I don't get it. Like, I really don't get it.
That's fair.
Don't at me. I don't get it. I gave literally every song on that album a 5 out of 10 during the rate because I was gonna re-listen to it for the rate, and then I started off with Titanic Rising because I wanted to start strong. Went to All Mirrors and went to Magdalene, and then by the time I got to the Big Thief album, I was just like, I can't fucking do this, dude. I can't fucking do this. And so I just gave everything a 5 because I'm like, I assume everything here is a 5. So
yeah, but everyone else
we're
is giving
barely
like
a half hour
usually as their minimum.
We're barely a half hour into the pod and we're already getting bad Matty takes.
We all have
buddy,
stuff to talk about too.
Buddy, I get into these takes
We
right
have
away.
regrets.
I get these takes right away. But
This is
what
Look,
is everyone else's favorites to win this the Mercury prize here?
Dua Lipa, just because that'd be the funniest one.
That would be funny. I like the Porridge Radio album a lot. Still, I've been listening to it a lot. I think it's really good. I would like the Porridge Radio one to win. I was surprised Sports Team was nominated. I just listened to that for the first time, and they're good. They're a band that has a terrible band name, but are pretty decent and are essentially like what if Black Midi was like was at all interested in pop music, as like is essentially what it is. It's like the Gremlin kind of wacky British post-punky rock thing, but they have like a Joyce Manor kind of pop punk sensibility to them almost. It's a weird mix of things, but it kind of works.
It's like the end of the Connor O'Malley Howard Schultz cycle
God.
arc where they made him
It is a strange album.
When are you gonna run for president, my man?
That is how
Hey,
he's
normal
thinking.
now. Howard fixed me.
I think my favorite to win this, as in like who I think is going to win it, I think it would actually be Laura Marling. Either her or Stormzy, because apparently Laura Marling has been nominated like this is her 4th time now, if I'm not mistaken.
And people really like this record.
Yeah, the Song for Our Daughter is a really great record. I wish Zach was on this episode so that I could
stand.
Yeah, so that I could
It's pretty good.
quote unquote stand it. It's really good. It's really solid. She continues to just mature more and more as a songwriter. Anyway, so I think that's probably either that or Stormzy. But
yeah, I could see Stormzy winning it.
Yeah,
that would make sense.
Yeah. Charlie, not a chance in hell, I don't think. I think that Charlie and Kiwanuka are both the ones that are like they're the ones that are like, okay, we have to nominate them because how can we not nominate
Moses Boyd
them?
isn't gonna make it either because he's their like token jazz nom. They always have one a year exactly that never wins.
Yeah, like they've nominated Sons of Kemet, they nominated Shabak and the Ancestors, and I think a bunch of other acts, and I'm suddenly blanking on. But yeah, there's no way in hell that like Kiwanuka is gonna win it.
I mean, honestly, I would put him as the favorite. I think like it's not the one that I would want to win per se, but it seems like from what I'm hearing from from like press wise, what I know, it seems like that one would be the favorite. Either that or Stormzy.
There was a lot of buzz on the Kiwanuka when it came out, to the point where I almost kind of forgot about it for a while. I literally, among them, these albums here, I think I've only listened to that and the Charlie XCX. But like, I remember when that had come out last year, there was like a huge kind of like buzz period for it for like about a month. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of momentum kind of has a bit of a surge back here.
Mm-hmm. I would say the nominees this year, they're not as interesting as the ones last year. Last year, there's a lot of really interesting albums. Like, obviously, like, we had Black Midi, Kate LeBon, 1975, Idols, Fontaine's DC, Slow Tie, Little Sims, Now. So it's not as good as last year's nominees, but I still think there's some good, there's some decent stuff here. But it's a lot that I haven't gotten to yet, really.
I am expecting though to Slow Tie to just show up on the stage and decapitate Boris again.
Oh god, that'd be great.
But this time, real Boris.
Speaking of which, Slow Tie is he's a bit of a weirdo. I'm
He's a weird dude.
He just keeps increasingly doing like I feel like it's almost Kanye level stuff at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just don't. Maybe it's just like I don't know. Like London, British trash. Aesthetic. But it just like I'm watching him, just like this is some like just higher aesthetic like train spotting shit that he's trying to pull off now.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I think there was was it like some BBC awards where he was like really weird with that female presenter?
Yeah,
I'd apologize for it.
He like half apologized for it. It was this really weird like half apology where it was sort of just like, fellas, am I right? And then he just kind of kept going about his business. I don't know. I don't get the hype around him, is basically what I'm trying to say.
I thought his album was fine. I thought his album was fine, but I couldn't get into it farther than that.
I think in general, it's just sort of a thing that like is very similar to how I feel about JPEG Mafia, where it's like, it's one thing if your music is very aggro, but if that aggro-ness just kind of carries into like your presence on the internet and your vibe at all times, it can just be sort of off-putting, even if you're like mad at the right. Not that I'm like tone policing JPEG Mafia or whatever, like.
No, you should
Whatever.
totally JPEG Mafia.
He's just a little obnoxious all of the time, and that makes, and as someone who really loved Veteran and likes his production sound a lot, it can be exhausting to sift through all of the like self-aggrandizing.
Yeah,
stuff.
but I think Peggy's self-aware about it. Like
More
he
so
understands
than
that he's like, yeah, he's conditioning this like online persona with his Twitter account and everything. I think like every time I see Slow Tie, I do not get that vibe at all.
I get that.
Mm-hmm. I guess
Anyway,
we should just go to the Polaris Music Prize.
We got a lot of shit.
Which is the
I think that one's got a more interesting list.
Yeah.
At least for my tastes.
Yeah, I think both these are just like, there's like a lot of stuff I just haven't really gotten into yet, and I think is it just like me as being American, or just like I just have been behind? I think it's both. But the short list for the Polaris Music Prize, Backwash, God Has Nothing to Do with It, or God Has Nothing to Do with This, leave him out of it. Caribou Suddenly, Jesse Ray's Before Love Came to Kill Us, Junia T, Studio Monk, K Tranda, Bubba, Lido Pimenta, Miss Columbia. I'm gonna mispronounce this. Niawak, Nippy, Pantano, U.S. Girls Heavy Light, and then Witch Prophet, DNA Activation. I have not listened to a single one of these in full, except for Heavy Light. That's the only one I've listened to in full.
I couldn't even remember K Tranda put out an album.
Yeah, that album was like such a memory hole record.
I went in December, so
it is a memory hole.
It was record. December.
Yes.
Yeah.
December.
It was the end of the year. This was less than a year ago. God.
I'm
I
looking
will
at this
say-
album. I was like, oh, this came out in like 2018. I'm
Nope.
so confused.
Time is an illusion.
Oh,
No,
the Backwash record is
actually,
so sick.
even though the Backwash record fucking rules, I actually think Kaytranada might win this, even though 99.9% is definitely a much better record, and I think Bubba had mostly kind of came and went. I also think it's the right, like I think it's one of those things where like enough people have come around to the Kaytranada train at this point, and the feature list for this album is even more impressive and big name than the last one, and I think I could imagine them giving it to Kaytranada. I think of these, my favorite is either the Backwash or Caribou. I continue to listen to this Caribou album, and it's not like my favorite Caribou album, but I think it's a really, really nice record, and I still enjoy it.
There's not a
I-
bad Caribou album. You know,
That's
this
also
one is
true.
just,
Yeah.
it's fine.
I can't remember, has the Polaris ever awarded a past winner before? Because that would be the only thing I would imagine would possibly get in Kaytranada's way.
That's true.
Yeah, the Lido,
I
yeah.
don't know.
because it's a previous
Um,
Polaris winner.
I never listened to the U.S. Girls album. Oh,
It's pretty
I
good.
listened-
Like, I came around to it slowly, but like it's actually better than I was thinking at first.
yeah.
I
I listened to the singles and I was like, yeah, that's fine. And then I never got around to it again.
I'm just not a fan. I just don't. Like I said, I was not a big In a Poem Unlimited fan. I was just not. I didn't care for that record all that much. And Heavy Light it's doubling down on that sound, and I think it just abandons like the earlier, more experimental work that she was doing. That was just like really, really cool and really interesting. Like Half Free is just such an incredible record, and so Heavy Light just like there's little hints of that old sound on this record. Like the last track I remember is a bit of a standout for me, but for the most part it's just like that.
Yeah, it's
Like,
a cover of one she did like really early in her career.
just how, like, I guess like 70s soul revival, is that the best way to describe it?
Yeah,
I don't-
close-ish. It's got a lot of elements of funk and other stuff that have evolved since then.
Basically like going
It's a
for
genre
this more
mash.
this more like band leader soul music thing versus like the more like experimental pop stuff. I just like, here's the thing, I'm in the minority here when it comes to In a Poem Unlimited, because a lot of people love that album and I just do not care for it at all. So, but I feel like this record, like it's like I said, it got memory hold, but I don't think it's because the album is bad. It's because it came out in February, like right before shit went down. So
Yeah, anything
Yeah.
that came out in January or February is just, it feels like it exists in a different universe, and
This
so it's
album-
hard to.
This album came out 3 days after Bernie won the New Hampshire primary.
Oh,
It
God.
literally came out in a different world.
Good Lord.
Jesus Christ.
As somebody who wasn't on the episode where we talked about it, I think I was like really heavily into it when it did come out, just because I was in a big US Girls phase. But I feel like I've kind of cooled off on it just because it's one of those albums that aside from like the singles, I don't really end up going back to like a lot of the other deeper cuts, other than some of the ones where she's taking new approaches to her old material, just because her old material is so good, and hearing her kind of work within the bounds of like both territories is cool. But I don't know, it's an interesting album about kind of like the intersections of like capitalism and misogyny, but it doesn't entirely kind of cohere, come to a culmination in the way that I particularly might like. I think like another pass through or some kind of refinement, pruning down of the track list might have made something like really cool with it. But there is some good stuff on there.
yeah, I guess the favorite, like I said, there's one I'd pick. I mean, like I said, there's only one I listen to. From what I've heard from y'all and what I've heard just in general, it'd be very cool for Backwash to win. It seemed like that'd be a cool record to win, but it seems like I'm surprised it's nominated, because I didn't realize Backwash was that big. I just thought it was just sort of like, oh, like they're kind of big within like the the black dresses, that kind of scene. I didn't realize that it was like, oh, it like extends beyond that. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, her earlier EPs got her some good fan base.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
gotten a lot of good press this year too.
Yeah, this album really exploded
Yeah,
for
the
her.
Exclaim got the 9 out of 10 there.
Okay. I need to get to it. I promise to try to get to it later this week. I'm trying to think of like any snubs. I'm just trying to think of like what like Canadian music albums. Andy
Neon
Schaaf,
Skyline.
that's a big snub. That's a really big snub. I don't understand how that's not on here at all. It
Yeah, I
makes
have
no
no
sense.
clue.
Because it's a great record. As far as I know, Andy Schaaf, he just keeps to himself. Really, he's just a nice little Canadian boy.
Was the party nominated? I don't even think the party was nominated, so I think he's just kind of making his way up. So
Well,
that there might be something like that to it.
I can't even say that because like the party, like it wasn't like big on release, but like it gained like a really strong fan base by the time that Neon Skyline came out. So it's not like Andy Schaaf's like a small artist. He's a pretty big artist. Like he was one of our bigger AMAs this year on the subreddit. So it's just a little shocking to me that it didn't make it on here, unless it was. And it's not even like I said, maybe it's like, oh, like the deadlines, like no, because there's an album from December on here, so that doesn't make any sense. So yeah, just weird that's probably the most notable snub I can think of.
That, and for me, the personal one is the Owen palette, but like I've already said my piece on it. But it's kind of a little strange given their history with like being on the Polaris shortlist like almost every album.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I forgot to mention this in the Mercury Prize. I'm surprised Sawayama didn't make it to the Mercury Prize.
Oh shit! Yeah, I didn't
yeah.
even put that together, but yeah, that would.
I think she'll probably get it on the next album cycle once she has more hype.
Possibly. It's just odd. It's like, oh yeah, that's another one. Sorry, that's 95. That's another one. I'm surprised.
Fuck.
But that one, I'm not too like. It's like I wish it was on there, but I'm not too surprised because I think like I said, it seems like maybe the next one could make it on there, but we'll have to see.
Well, there was that whole like mini controversy with like Nadine Shaw complaining about the 1975 supposedly getting nominated, and then they weren't, and then
I wouldn't be surprised if they did a last minute shuffle because of that. That wouldn't shock me per se.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I thought Nadine's album was very good. I think she ends up on the Mercury Prize shortlist usually, so I was very surprised to see Kitchen Sink wasn't nominated for that. But also, maybe butting heads with Mercury Prize was what took her off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nevertheless, let's I think that does end the discussion for the news. Let's talk about some singles that have come out over the last week or two or three. We'll probably touch on a couple of these. Probably won't have much to say on most of these. Just sort of brief touchings on. Mostly recommendations. I think there's like one or two big ones we'll probably have more to say on. But number one,
everyone's talking about it.
Everyone's talking about Bugsnax. Bugsnax, baby. So in case anyone isn't familiar, actually, you might know more about this than me, Rose. But as far as I know, Sony had their PlayStation conference.
Yeah, they had a PlayStation conference where the developers of Octodad Dadliest Catch released a trailer for their next game called Bugsnax, and prominently featured in this trailer was a new Caro Caro Bonito song, which was just the title theme for Bugsnax. Truly deeply confusing timeline we live in.
It's such a like logical endpoint for Caro Caro Bonito because their music is so like the way the lyrical delivery is like so plain. It kind of does feel like they've always
so
been
hyped
making
up.
commercial jingle music. You know what I mean? like it just makes so much sense for Caro Caro Bonito to just be like saying the name of a product in the song, like Bugsnax. Like it just checks out in terms of their whole poppy aesthetic and the game that they would choose to put their name to. It's just great. The whole thing is great.
It's a lovely little thing.
Yeah. Karl Marx failed to consider that Bugsnax. That it's Bugsnax.
This is the answer we all needed for product.
Oh my god. I think the weirdest thing for me is that this is coming like at this point in their career, not like immediately after Bonito Generation or like somewhere around there where like it feels like a natural evolution of that sound. It kind of feels weird to hear something like this after Time and Place, and I kind of wonder how long this might have been like kicking around, like this particular collab.
That is also true.
Okay, so I did read an interview about like how this came together. I think the developers of Bugsnax, they came to KKB and they're like, "Hey, we want you guys to do a theme song for our game and just sort of in the style of your older music." I think they sent like one of the songs from
Ah.
Winning to Generation, and so they did it. They didn't realize it was going to be on the PlayStation conference. They had no idea. So like, it's just
God.
like all of a sudden just a swirl of tweets being like, "What the fuck is this Bugsnax?" Like, I don't know what this game is. The theme song rules though, but what the fuck is this game?
I
But
mean, I can't tell you. The Octodad is a deeply confusing game.
Octodad rules. I never played it, but like I've seen gameplay. It just looks like it fucking rules. The
It's
concept is so
so
good.
much. It's so much. You have to go to the fucking grocery store with your children and go get breakfast. It's a nightmare.
God. It's Bugsnax, baby. It's Bugsnax. Okay. Moving on. Nat and I, we can spit. We mentioned Andy Schaff. He dropped a new single or a double single, Judy, which I think is I assume is a B side from the new
Yeah.
album, and then Jeremy's Wedding, which
Yeah.
apparently is like a live cut that's been out there for a while. But
It's actually the other way around. It's
okay,
yeah, so when he was touring with Fox Warren, I think last year, maybe 2 years back, he mostly did like songs with the band, but like during his encore he did Judy, which was the first song on that A side, solo, and for a while it was kind of kicking around. People were wondering if it was going to be on the Neon Skyline just because there is Judy on there, and it was like the first song from the album that he was really kind of workshopping, but then it just wasn't, and he kept on playing it. He did like a live stream a couple weeks ago and just played it, and everyone was like, what is this song that you're just playing that has the name of the person that's on the album? And Jeremy's Wedding, I believe, was like standalone B-side that came with like vinyl copies of the album, because I'm pretty sure I have it sitting around somewhere. But it's kind of this neat little intersection of like the Neon Skylines storyline with the party storyline, because there are like people from both of them in it, but both of them are just nice, quaint little Andy Schaff narrative folk tunes.
yeah, it's good stuff, baby. Neon Skyline, I guess a solid top 5, top 6 album of the year. Again, I it's one that was like, oh damn, this one's gonna get like kind of memory hold because of COVID, and I don't want it to because it's a really fucking good record. It's really goddamn good. It's like maybe the only good, like if I can recall an album from January that's like, oh, this is like a great record. It's like this is like the maybe the only worthwhile January release at this point. Maybe there might be another, but I think this is like Navy Blue. But I think Navy Blue was like February, so I don't know. Neon Skyline, great. These new singles, very very good. I'm glad to have them. But next, Jackson. Let's did you listen
Sure.
to the single yet? I know
Uh,
well,
I have listened to the singles. I have not listened to the album, which is not out yet, and I don't have access to. What are you talking about? It's good. It's really good. Young Jesus back, baby. Oh, wolf howl. I really, really love Young Jesus. I like their last album uh, so much, and I'm very happy to say that they continue to do the thing that they do very well, and I'm very much looking forward to this record. I imagine we will probably talk about it on this podcast when it comes out. Very excited. Love those boys. They continue to do the thing that they did on their first record, which is just that like when you read any article about them and their lead singer and just their kind of vibe, you think like this is going to be the most awful pretentious band in the world, and then they're really not that, and it's great. But they're also very very creative and good.
yes. I should clarify. I don't think I've announced this on the pod, but you probably know from Twitter at this point. I'm interning at No Earbuds right now, and Young Jesus is one of the records that I'm not doing a lot of work on it per se. Like I just have access to it because I'm an intern. And folks, I won't say much. It's a fucking great record. One of my favorite albums of the year. It's really amazing. Definitely the best thing that Young Jesus has done yet. And the song is really fucking good. give Young Jesus a listen to Young Jesus, okay? They're
Yeah,
fucking
there
good.
are 2 singles out for this album right now, Unknowing and also Root and Crown. They're both very good.
Yes. Two very short songs too. So
Which is if you weren't familiar with the last Young Jesus album, the last song on the Young Jesus album is like 20 minutes long. So them writing 4-minute songs is a real change of pace and a good one, I think.
it's like the two singles. They're only the only two short songs on the record. The rest are like anywhere from like 6
Insane.
minutes to like 12 or 13 minutes. It's a great record. It's a great record. I'm very excited to go more in depth on it later this year. But now the next one, Lamelda Wonder, Pain,
Jesus.
Pain,
Pain City.
Pain.
Pain.
Oh,
It fucking hurts.
oof.
This is another record again. I have this one early.
I
Not
have
for
also
anything. It was
been
just
listening to this.
it's very very excited to talk about this record more in depth later on in the fall. It's really fucking good. The single is really really amazing. I love the callback to Only World.
Yes.
It's just
It's
beautiful.
I said this before, so like it's on one level it's fucked up that Lomelda managed to write songs that are so devastating with so little words. She just knows how to like cut straight directly into your heart with like 4 words or whatever. But this song is extra impressive because not only is it like a total of 12 words or whatever, but half of the song is a just callback to something she said on another song already, and somehow that doesn't feel at all like she's recycling ideas and instead fucks me up more somehow. It's just it's the when you get it, give it that lyric on Only World is like one of my favorite Lomelda lyrics and like one that I think about all the time, and it's such an interesting song idea because it's like the lyric on Only World is her like trying to tell herself something. When you get it, give it all you have. And then now it's like you wrote that song about doing that. Like why aren't you doing that? It's kind of in a weird meta way like a song about not even being able to like follow your own advice that you wrote for yourself in a song. And on that level, I think it is just genius and such a great representation of how Lamelda is able to do so much with so little.
It's and for empathy, that out like I said, I obviously I talked about that album in depth last year for the Indieheads Album of the Year series. That record did not. I mean, I won't say like didn't get a fair shake, but it's just like people really did not like that album. Is really fucking great. Like I might like that album more than Thanks Now. Like that album is so
It
fucking good.
rules.
And like I said, Hannah. She's so fucking good, as you said, at being able to take these tiny things. She's not a very like lyrically like I think she's a great lyricist, but she's able to do so much with so little just because she has such a powerful voice, and she's such a great songwriter. I feel like her songs there's always something really interesting going on, always really interesting musical motifs and interesting instrumentation. I think production too. The production is always so good. Her and her brother are such a great production duo. I'm honestly surprised that more artists don't work with them because like I think they're able to create such a unique sense of intimacy that just is like almost completely unmatched by most artists. You know, and
I agree. Yes, absolutely.
like I'm not gonna pull out some unfair comparisons, but just like Lomelda, like I said, from listening to this record, I really do hope like this is the one that like really blows her up. I mean, I think she's always I think she's obviously in a pretty good position. I think there's a lot of people that know her and listen to her, but like it's not enough. Like compared to like some of the other artists that are kind of making similar music, I think she deserves to be a hell of a lot bigger because I think she's doing a lot more. She's just doing so much interesting stuff and like consistently is an artist that like pain just no one is able to bring me so much pain like Hannah does. It's insane. It's completely insane. But the single is so good. I'm very excited for the record, and I will say I think this is already kind of known, but I'll just reiterate it. if you remember the song that she did during the Pace Life session, the one named after herself, Hannah, it's on the album. It's fucking great. Pain, just pain. Uh, but another single I want to highlight once again, full disclosure. Barty Strange is an artist that's represented by No Earbuds, where I'm interning at. So take whatever I say with a grain of salt. But this new Barty Strange single, Mustang, there's a new artist you need to check out. It's fucking Barty Strange. This song is fucking amazing. If you are a fan of the National, get on this one immediately. It's really fucking breathtaking.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I'm not even a fan of the National. I thought it was a very captivating thing. Like, I tried his covers EP earlier this year, and I was just okay on it because, again, not a National head, but like, he has a very interesting style to those performances, which still made it intriguing beyond that context.
Yeah. This particular single actually kind of reminded me a lot of like the more like really propulsive like Walkman songs from like way back when.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
like any sort of thing that kind of captures that vibe is immediately going to win me over.
Mm-hmm. It's so good. It's so good. I'm excited to have more news for everybody soon because yeah, this song is great. The record he has coming out later this year is great. Very very excited to get to introduce more people to Barty's because again he's pretty fucking great and this song is incredible. Again, there's a reason why like so many artists and so many blogs are like hyped about this song. Like there's a good reason for it. You know, like he's pretty much been Jamie's like or Jamie Quetta's that's been like the one artist like she's really been focusing on in terms of like trying to get out there and like I said for good fucking reason. So yeah, Barty Strange, Mustang, really fucking good. Rose, actually, I'll let you take this next one because I don't have a lot to say, but
Okay, yeah.
maybe a better
So,
intro than I am.
Sufjan Stevens, I think it was last month at this point. It might have been earlier this month for all I know, but
It was July
earlier.
10th. Time is an illusion.
Okay, yeah. See, like, I have no sense of scale and time anyway. Even without like the pandemic, I'm terrible. But like earlier this month, he announced his new record, The Ascension, and then also announced a one-off single to go with it. So it's like last album cycle when he did the Exploding Whale single for the tour and stuff. And so the A side is the closing track on the new record, America, which is 15 minutes.
I think it's just a little over 10.
Shorter.
Okay, wait, yeah, I was way overestimating. Yeah, because
It's 12. It's 12 and a half.
yeah,
and
it's
then
12 minutes because
My Rajneesh
My
is 10.
Rajneesh is still 10 and it's shorter. Or 8 minutes. Yeah.
I like these. They're America
fun.
is kind of a little underwhelming as like a closer or whatever.
I'm sure,
I mean,
like, that's the thing. I
it'll
can't
probably
really
make
judge it because it's
more
in a
content.
very specific context.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
I feel like if you're listening to a closer without the rest of the album, you're not really
Exactly.
doing anything.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's kind of a baffling choice for a first single just because of its
Yeah.
scale and its like place and how it ends for the supposed close of the album where you have this like long fading out drone that goes on for like 3 or 4 minutes. And like I honestly think that like even though it's not on the album, My Rajneesh is the more interesting song because it
definitely.
uses more of that space and like it's a little bit unfair to judge the two against each other with that in mind just because one is going to be a part of a larger project, but like in terms of the one I'll probably be listening to on its own, I'd probably go with My Rajneesh more.
Yep. Same here. I feel very sad. We were saying this before the podcast, but these two songs and My Rajneesh especially really remind me of the Carrie and Lowell live tour and how he responded to doing this whole record that was very minimalist and very intimate, and then was like, get the fucking tinfoil. We're going like full maximalist Age of Odds bullshit again. And I'm very happy.
Not even full Age of Oz. It was more like a much more ambient electronic sort of vibe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And you're seeing
like,
some of that on these singles for sure. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say the like sort of expansive song structures remind me a lot of the All Delighted People EP too, especially just kind of how
Ooh,
they
yeah.
fill their space and the sort of like different breadth of different sounds that he's bringing into it. It's kind of like a collision of that plus like the more kinds of ambient electronics he brought in with Carrie and Lowell tour.
Yeah,
Totally.
Jaharia, but less weird prog solos.
It's very accurate. I'm
Although
excited.
I
I
do
mean,
not mind the prog solos.
it's hard not to be excited for a Sufjan Stevens album, even if these singles like weren't good. I'd still be excited. So I'm just like at this point, I'm like I just want to hear the whole record and see
Yeah.
how I feel.
And speaking of records that I'm
Oh,
very
God.
confused about the end results,
Oh, good segue. I'm very
Yeah.
excited to talk about this, especially.
I am this Avalanche's rollout. We've already talked extensively about Runnin' Red Lights featuring Pink Sifu and Rivers Cuomo.
Just
I think we had
what a
opinions.
combination of worlds that should never have collided.
None of these three names should have gone together. They all should have stayed separate. It's not right. Especially the Weezer factor. The Weezer factor just makes it worse.
Even if this is like a completely digital 21st century collab where these people were never even in the same room together, they just like emailed their parts from across the country. I don't like knowing that Rivers Cuomo knows who Pink Sifu is. I just want I feel like now that they have intersected, like something has gone wrong in the universe that we can't undo. You know what I mean? Like these were not shows to touch.
Damn, Van Weezer's gonna rule.
What, you don't want Rivers Cuomo to become a black nationalist? Is that what you're saying?
I do want Rivers Cuomo to become a black nationalist. I don't want Rivers Cuomo to make a Standing on the Corner style jazz rap album.
But these are their singles.
But like I think what we're getting at is I think what we've all been feeling generally about this Avalanche's rollout, and the thing I compared it to in the podcast chat, and it really pains me to do this, but it really does remind me so much of the Humans rollout.
It does.
It has big humans, and I think it's really like indicative.
They're just like, it's that thing they were doing where they were just like throwing out a bunch of singles. They're like, do you like this one, guys? Is this the sound you want this time? Is this what you want?
Pretty much.
It's do you enjoy it? We've got the girl from Savages this time.
Oh, I think about that all the time because I recently got
Damon, like the way he got guessed for it was he asked his daughter who she liked.
Oh God!
He's so out of sync with the culture that he just doesn't know at all who to bring in.
Single-handedly blame Damon Albarn for ruining Savages because they have not released anything since that song.
That is really funny. Yeah, it is just such a. I think what we're identifying is that in a very similar arc to what happened with the Gorillas, where you have essentially like the first Wildflower is essentially Plastic Beach, where it's like you've got this early sound that is like one thing. Like the Since I Left You, that whole album had this very specific crafted sample heavy sound, and then after all these years away, they're finally like, let's make another record, and they bring in a whole bunch of collaborations. Like let's bring in all of these artists, and I don't love Wildflower personally, but I also like enough of the collaborations on there kind of make sense with what Avalanche's sound was up until that point. And
some of them are also kind of improbably good in a way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the same deal with Plastic Beach. Is like there's some names that you're just like, what are these people doing here? And then you hear it's like, oh, okay.
It's the thing is I love Wildflower, and in the years since it's passed, I have come to like it honestly more than Since I Left You. Mostly just because it does such a really interesting way of refining that early sound of theirs into a way that feels still like the same core band. The problem with these singles for me is that it's just they don't even feel like the same band anymore. It feels like they're just providing like anonymous like backing production for whoever the fuck they want to get on board with these. And like to make the Gorillaz analogy even clearer, what this reminds me of is this reminds me of the non-Do Ya Thing Converse Rubber tracks, where they just paired together like 3 improbable artists on like every song, and they never worked.
And then finally we got the miracle one that just was like, fuck it, James Murphy and Andre 3000. Surely this will do something. And then it's just 12 minutes of those dudes screaming at the top of their lungs. And it's the best thing on this planet. Like, oh, shoe music.
Shoe music. You gotta love it. But I think you're absolutely right. Like, the best of these singles, I think very clearly, is We Will Always Love You, the one with Blood Orange. And I think that in itself is kind of indicative, because that song is just good because it sounds like a Blood Orange song. It's not like,
it's kind of just a nothing burger. Like, it just kind of
goes, new Avalanches song. It's just like, here is Avalanches. Like, it feels like these songs are all songs that the Avalanches would step in and do for someone else, and that's not really like the collaborations on Wildflower work because they're like all sewn into this whole thing. And obviously we haven't heard the new record, so maybe there will be enough non-collab tracks and enough stuff to kind of patch it all together, but this just feels so much less conceptual than
or cohesive for that matter.
These songs go on for so long too.
The reason it worked as a whole is because it had this greater tapestry of the aesthetic, and like, you know, they weren't just like, here is a Danny Brown song somehow fit into this. It's like they brought Danny Brown into their world to like do the specific thing you want. Like, if MF Doom is going to be on this record, he's going to have to do some fucking carnival music.
Y'all,
because that's what we want.
I'm starting to think that the Avalanches are never going to top the Noisy Eater.
It's a great song.
I'm not joking. I'm not joking, by the way.
I'm not joking either.
It's the best song.
I'm very genuine.
It's the best song in Wildflower.
No.
Oh no!
Step back.
The Wazard of Iz would like a word with you.
You started good, and then you crashed and burned. Okay, Wazard of Iz exists.
The Wazard of Iz is not a good song. It's not
so good.
It doesn't. It's like, if it didn't have Danny Brown on it, I would probably like it more. But he just doesn't fit on that song to me.
The Danny Brown verse is like just the most ridiculous thing in that beat. Him just going over that beat and then it just switching as soon as it gets interesting. It's just like, oh, okay, we're doing this now. Like, that album was very, like, Since I Left You, the flow of the songs felt a little more natural, but like the second one is so chaotic in a good way. Like, it's very much like, oh, they can do this now. Like, fucking let's sample the Paul McCartney Ram album or whatever. And then get Danny Brown over some weird 60s boy pop.
When are we going to get the temporary secretary sample from the Avalanches, or just anyone? When is someone going to give that song more appreciation besides Mega 64?
Hopefully never.
That's a great song. It's a great song, Rose. It's a great song.
It's not bad. It's just cursed.
It is cursed, but I want someone to potentially put a hex on themselves by covering that song. So, anyways, let's get to some good bleeps, or presumably good bleeps.
Oh, yes, very, very, very good bleeps.
Oh, great!
I
can hear this. It's not, the album is not here yet, but Kelly Lee Owens
it's been on the way all fucking year.
It has been on the way all fucking year, and I am somewhat mad at these artists that have pushed off their album releases because they were not really pushing it off for anything because they still can't go on tour or whatever. But I'm glad that they're mostly coming out now, and I'm very happy that we are slowly but surely nearing Kelly Lee Owens season, because these 3 singles and this new single On especially are probably the best material she's ever released, and I think show a very significant step up over what was already good on the self-titled 2017 album, because like I think her specific fusion of ambient music and club music and kind of chamber pop, if you want, ambient pop, is like on that album, like the fusion of genres itself is like pretty interesting and always really pretty and engaging. But here I think it's like just refined so much better, where like all of the kind of pop melodies are so beautiful, but the production is a lot crisper. And I think these songs really, the way that they're able to blend from being full like ambient pop songs to like these bustling bang club beats that are not ever, they're never too heavy that they like mess up the kind of atmosphere that she creates, but they're also a lot more kind of forceful than they were on the Kelly Lee Owens self-titled. I really love all of these songs. I think they've gotten progressively better from each one. Like I think Night is a little bit better than Melt, and I think On is a little better than both of them. They're really great. I'm so excited for this new record. I really cannot wait.
It's really great, and I think her aesthetic was already pretty developed in a way, but like it's slowly just been getting even more refined from that point.
Her set at Pitchfork 20 was it last
was
year?
nuts. It was
That was-
2018.
Okay, 2018. Yeah,
2018.
her set in 2018 was either 2018 or 20. It was fucking nuts.
I was right up front for that, and I don't remember who fucking came up with Kelly Lee Owens. More like Kelly Lee owns the sass.
Okay.
I think that was Lily. That definitely sounds like Lily. But yeah, I saw Kelly Lee Owens at FYF Festival, RIP, which was like I think maybe like her third US show like ever. Like she had just come over from the UK to tour the US for the first time, and seeing Kelly Lee Owens perform for like 100 people and then going to the main stage and seeing Bjork, it was not like, oh, Kelly Lee Owens is gonna be the next Bjork because there's one Bjork, but I'm like, Kelly Lee Owens is like gonna do shit that's really gonna blow people away, and I think she's going to get a lot bigger. And I am very pleased with how these singles have come out. They're all really fucking great.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Jesus
Sorry.
Christ, Matty. We've been
What the
podcasting too long already.
Blame fucking Gavin, okay? Blame fucking Gavin and his weird fixation on
Gavin has
Austin
poisoned
Powers
all of our
movie.
brains, and we love him, and we hope that he never stops
just
posting
poisoned me.
21 Guns on Music Board.
I've been liking those 21 Guns posts every day. I'm the only person doing it.
Okay,
It's like you wake up in the morning and so much has changed every day, and our world is a hellscape. But it's like, okay,
Shit,
thank
I haven't
God.
done it today.
The one
Gavin has
certainty.
posted 21 Guns to his Music Board page. All is well.
The servers were down. I couldn't like Gavin's 21 Guns post. Oh, they're still down. Oh, never mind.
Okay. All right, let's move on to what we've been listening to. I'm not sure about everyone else, but I'll probably mine will be somewhat brief. The briefest one is the one I've listed second, but I'm just gonna say it first. I finally listened to a PJ Harvey album in full. First time. Again, it's been a big blind spot. My girlfriend was like, for some reason, we got on the topic about Nick Cave and PJ Harvey, and she was like, you need to listen to Bring You My Love. And I'm like, okay. And I listened to it, and folks, I am going feral. I am going fucking feral. And if you want to find me, call me in like a week, because I'm going fucking feral.
Yeah.
Rid of Me does it to you.
I listened to Rid of Me right after. I wasn't as into it as To Bring You My Love, but also, like I said, continued like my, oh yeah, I'm going fucking feral, folks. Let's get out of here.
I mean, it helps that the opening tracks of both of those records are equally
Fucking insane.
and deeply unhinged in the best way possible.
I was listening to it. I was like very similar to Fetch the Bolt Cutters. I was like, the vocal stylings are very similar, and that again, that sort of unhinged, like, just I don't care about sounding beautiful. I'm fucking angry and feral, and you're gonna hear me roar. You know, you're gonna hear me.
No.
Jesus Christ,
Stop.
Matty.
Stay on track.
You ruined it.
Stay on track.
Stop.
Is someone keeping count of
No
these?
pivot.
Just okay, keep a days without Matty bad takes bad moment. It's
Erase
constantly
0.
erase 0, erase 0.
So,
Just
no,
it's
you have to measure it in minutes. You can't just do a days counter.
Okay. But Beach Rabbit's good. One that I have a bit more to say. Spoon transference. Dill, please don't again. Hank,
Spoon guy. Spoon guy.
Okay, so a channel, a YouTube channel I've been getting into lately. I'm not sure. I mean, hey, if you listen to this podcast, I would love that. Please come on the podcast, Mike the Snare, because I love your channel. It's really
Hell
good.
yeah.
He put out a video about transference a couple days ago, and I was like watching it, being like, "Oh damn, this record sounds like fucking tight." And so I listened to the record, and I'm like, "Damn, this album's fucking great." And it's all I've been able to listen to like throughout this week. It's an amazing record. And I'm like, "Well, damn, guess I'm going to become a Spoon guy this year." And then I listened to They Want My Soul and Give Me Fiction, and I was like, "Oh well, guess I'm not going to be a Spoon guy this year. It's just not going to happen."
Yeah. It's I was mildly upset when you picked it for this because that was like the other one that I had been listening to a lot since that video too. Also shout out Mike the Snare, fellow Bostonian. But since that video I like delved into it because the entire production style of it sounded extremely interesting, in the ways that it morphs intentionally imperfect like production styles into its own sort of like characteristic palette is so damn cool and so damn good. And like I'd listened to other Spoon albums before, but this is the one that like totally and completely clicked with me.
Mm-hmm. Like I liked Hot Thoughts at the time. I think it was probably like in my top 20, top 30 of 2017. But this one was like, oh damn, this is really fucking hitting. Like the extremely interesting production, where like I said, it like as Mike the Snare said, it literally sounds like a broken record at times. And the more kind of personal lyrics that Britt Daniel is pulling out, and just the pacing and the songs, it's hypnotizing. It's very hypnotizing. And like I said, I'm gonna try it with another Spoon album. I'm gonna try and hope I find another one that clicks with me. But like I said, I'm sorry, Dylan. I'm sorry to the entire state of Texas. Just wasn't. Again, this is the one that does it for me. Everything else hasn't quite hit yet, but we'll see what happens.
Look, I just got off the phone with Richard Linklater, and he is very upset.
God.
Okay, that's all I have to say. Rose, what were you
Okie
listening to this
doke.
week?
So, first up in this last week, these are pretty much all in the last week. I just don't give a shit. But first one is John Cale's Fear. So he made this album, and Paris 1919 is like actual fucking classic in back-to-back years. And that one, while it takes a much more Baroque style, Fear goes for just like this really old school rock that just sounds ridiculous and just, oh, it's so relaxing. That's what I love about pretty much everything I've heard of his, is just it's a relaxing vibe, and that is what I need in my brain right now, is to not freak out. And then next up is Ski Mask. I don't listen to much like Bleep material, but God, the Ski Mask album last year and both of these EPs, ISS 005 and 006, oh my God, they're so good.
Ski Mask never lost, ever.
Never lost. Not even once. And then this third one is for all the rock and roll music with guitars freaks. You kids like Fugazi, surely. Fucking okay. So Ian MacKaye has another band called Corky, and they kind of whip. To be honest, they're just like a very like extreme basics rock band. Like it's just drummer, bassist, guitarist, and they play pretty low and fast in a way that's very subtle, and the delivery is just something that intrigues me because they have two vocalists, including Ian, and it's just a very fun record, and it's also very political in a nuanced way that I do not see much political music writing doing in the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's all I got.
I need to listen to the Ski Mask EP still because, like I said, I probably mentioned it when the Pitchfork list came out, but like there was a couple albums they put on there that I was able to get into through that list. Compro being one of them, and Compro is one of my favorite electronic albums
It's
of the
so
decade.
good.
It's really fucking good.
Such a
There are so many
lovely-
people like as Mugatu would say in Zoolander, breakbeats so hot right now. And I think the reason why they're hot is also the reason why a lot of the times they can be underwhelming, because no one is as good at breakbeats as Ski Mask. Ski Mask is just the best at it. And I think part of it is because the ambient side of the breakbeats is so well crafted, and those synth tones are just so, ooh, they're so good. And these two EPs are a very great introduction to Ski Mask if you have not checked him out, because the first one, ISS 005, is entirely like the club music side of Ski Mask with just really crazy, fast, hard-hitting breakbeats, and then the other EP is entirely ambient. And so it's a real good there are two wolves inside you, the two halves of Ski Mask in these two EPs, and they're both really fucking good.
It's a really great back-to-back pairing. Like if you do 5 before 6 just for the calm down, sort of like a reverse version of that burial, the way the burial comp last year was sequenced with all the like really slow stuff at the start.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. Nat.
Hey, baby.
Let me say
baby,
this.
baby.
Brain poisoning.
We are the only podcast on the market cornering the like late 90s, early 2000s comedy references. I swear. Anyway, what I'm listening to, so I got one new, one old, might touch on another newer one, but Machine Girl, U Void synthesizer. I think this came out back in February, but like Power Electronics, they own my ears and destroy my ass. It's just I have been into Machine Girl for a while, and like a lot of other just kind of like bitches with basic taste, got into Wolf Girl forever ago, and the other releases that came out after there, where they started incorporating kind of like thrash metal vocals and like really intense, fast like instrumentals, didn't totally click for me, just because they flipped the switch a little from one side to the other a little too extremely, in a way that didn't entirely feel totally earned as like a transition for the artist. And in a weird way, this one's kind of like a nice bridging of those two different modes, where it's very heavy on the like incredibly fast thrash instrumentals and vocals, but there's a lot of really interesting variety to the instrumentals in terms of like tempo and like tones and different samples. And it's just a really cool place for them to evolve to, and I'm kind of interested to see if they can keep that momentum up. I've also been using the time where everything is just kind of dead and isolating socially to get heavily back into Liar's Drums Not Dead, because it is always a good time to get back into that album when shit like this is happening. But Drums Not Dead, concept album about two people that you could probably say are in like codependent relationship with each other, kind of toxic, but they also kind of need each other. There's like a duality between like the calmer side of one of them and like this really chaotic, aggressive side of the other. And the way that they accomplish this is these two concurrent drum kits that are going either in sync with each other or completely out of sync, or doing polyrhythms on top of each other, and stripping away the sort of soundscape that they had previously, which was all like very loud aggression on the two albums prior to this kind of bearer sound that still pushes that aggression but with fewer elements, is something that's really really cool to see. And they kind of started to find their bones as a band here, especially with just how cohesive the album is in general. And then I guess I'll briefly touch on I've been trying to understand Jockstrap's Wicked City. I have not gotten my head around it. I might just fully admit that this one's beyond me.
It's a deeply confusing EP. Like, the
It really
sequencing
is.
is so fucked.
The sequencing is confusing. The style and track selection is also very confusing because it's a 20-minute EP, 5 songs long. It starts with this like really aggressive, noisy track with Injury Reserve guesting, and then immediately scales it back for these kinds of Baroque piano theatrical tunes that have these kind of squelching electronics over them. And
So it's basically a Dean Blunt album.
Matty, you
I don't
might like
fucking
this.
know.
Well, here's the I say that because Jockstrap they did some work with Dean Blunt on Soul on Fire, and so for some reason I haven't got around to this EP yet. But like I said, I'm excited to check it out because this sounds kind of fucking cool to me. This sounds pretty
Yeah.
tight.
I gave it another listen today because I've been really getting into the last song on here called City Hell, which is for my money where it like clicks together in like the one sort of spot that appeals to me, which is this blend of all of these different genres of like piano tunes, auto tune, like harmonics, these like squelchy synth rhythms, a hair metal guitar solo that is just going all over top of each other, but they kind of ebb and flow and come in and out in a way that makes this really kind of nice complete conclusion where I feel like a lot of the other songs on here feel like they're kind of missing something emotionally. But yeah, I don't know. It really strikes me as an EP where they're trying to figure out what it is that they do, and I hope that on whatever full length of theirs comes out, they figure out kind of how to tap into that style a little bit more, because right now this feels kind of like a sampler for like any of like 5 different sounds the band could go off in.
So this EP is a bit of a chunky, is what
Yes.
you're saying.
Yeah,
Thank you for
they
picking up what I was
have to
putting
figure
down.
out what they're supposed to do.
Figure
They had
out
all
what
summer.
you're supposed to do. It's a chunky.
I will say this album or this EP has my current favorite album art of the year, which is what got me into it, which is this really fucking sick warped repeating image of a screaming face with like a sword being slit through the tongue. Just real damn good album art, and I was expecting so much from this album that that art did not quite live up to. Oh well.
Sad. Dill. All right, we'll go to Dill then. What have you been listening to this week?
I'm gonna keep it very brief. All I've really been listening to is Silver Jews, David Berman. We love the man. We miss him. But no, I've been listening to the most popular of his Silver Jews outfit in the late '90s stuff with American Water and The Natural Bridge. Two just utterly sublime records. His songwriting is beyond measure. You know, it has no contemporaries to it, in my opinion. And it's also just just a beautiful snapshot of uh, you know the way that Americana songwriting and singer songwriter stuff and folk and whatnot was about to head into going into the 20th 21st century. Just pulling in all these different folk monikers and these literary aspects of it that just it's just 20 almost 30 years for Natural Bridge removed from its initial release. It still is utterly exceptional, top and down. And that's it. I've been really just binging those 2 albums for like the past week or so. So that's it.
All right, Jackson. What have you been listening to this week?
All right, I'm gonna try to be brief because we still got a whole bunch of releases to talk about, and these are all recent stuff that's come out. But it's not it's stuff that I only really have stuff to say about, so I will say my piece. The first record I'm going to talk about is the new Shinichi Itobe record, which is called Yes. And my response to this record is yes.
I will also respond
Absolutely.
yes. Very yes.
Absolutely. It is very much it's following in the direction that the last Shinichi Itobe record from 2018 Heat was going in, where he's known for these really kind of minimal, pared back, meticulous, refined takes on ambient techno and house, and he was very mysterious. But now that he is no longer as anonymous, he has become much more prolific in recent years. And also, the other thing that's been shifting in his music is that it's a lot warmer. And Heat was an album, like the name of the album Heat implies that kind of, and that album really saw him going into sort of sublime directions in a way he wasn't before. And this album is taking that and taking it even further. This is like by far the most summery kind of sounding Shinichi Itobe record that we've heard yet. And there are some very, very good tracks here. I would like to especially shout out the closing track, Ocean One, which has just an incredible like G-funk synth bass line, and then these pianos that come in like 3 minutes into it are just I cannot get enough. Really good stuff. Highly recommend that. Speaking of bleep, these are all going to be generally kind of in the electronic world in different ways. The next album I'm talking about is the new Daniel Avery record, which is a record that I have not heard very much press about, which is weird to me. Like I stumbled across this record because I was going onto his page to listen to something else, and I'm like, there's a new Daniel Avery album out, and I checked it out, and it's really, really, really good. I think that it is a significant step up from Song for Alpha and what that album was doing, and it really perfectly fuses what was good about that album with what was really exceptional about Drone Logic in 2013. And I think this album really perfectly fuses the like really, really satisfying uh club music drum production of Drone Logic with the ambient techno stuff that he's doing on Song for Alpha. But unlike Song for Alpha, which is a selected ambient works cover band album essentially, this album feels a lot more distinct in its particular style. And even though you can see some of the influences he's pulling from, it feels very distinctly Daniel Avery in a way that the last album didn't so much. And I also think that the sequencing of this record is way better than Song for Alpha, and it makes it a really engaging listen the whole way through because it does a similar thing for Song for Alpha where it's jumping between here's a club track and here's an ambient track and here's a club track and here's another club track and here's an ambient track. But like on this album, I think the line between the club stuff and the ambient stuff is blurred in this really nice way where like a lot of the heaviest beats come early on, but even the heaviest beats are like layered in this thick shroud of kind of atmosphere. And as the record goes on, those heavy beats just sort of dissipate over time, and you get to these tracks like Into the Arms of Stillness and Fuzz War that are so much more ambient techno, so much more minimal and pared back in their kind of low end. And I think it's a really great record all around. I think Pure Life is one of my favorite ambient tracks he's ever done. It's all really good stuff. Highly recommend the new Daniel Avery album, Love Plus Light. Dill, do you have anything to say about it?
I think when we were discussing it in the chat like last week, I mentioned that it's basically an LFO album in the best possible way. You know, pulling in
Hell yeah.
it pulls in a lot of old school acid techno sequences to it, which I very, very much love. And I think he does it in a way that there's both an homage and also breathes life into the style because it's something that
Totally.
you can get very wrong very easily. So
It's such a thin line between like taking inspiration from the classics in a good way versus making it just seem like you're regurgitating what other people have already done. And I think this album scratches that itch while also taking it to very new, interesting directions. And I like it a lot. It's really great.
yeah, I agree. This is a fantastic record.
And my last record is a record that I just full on missed out for the first couple weeks, and I feel like a damn fool because I have been listening to "What's Your Pleasure" by Jessie Ware all week, and this album fucking slaps, whips, honks, etc. It's easily my favorite. It's not technically my favorite pop album this year because I think I would classify Fiona Apple as I would classify Bolt Cutters as a pop album, even though it's like so distinctly like its own thing and like an obelisk. And this is more like a pop album in the traditional sense, in that like this album is all bangers. Every song on this album is a banger. It's just banger after banger after banger, and I think is riding a wave of trends that is we're seeing in a lot of pop music, which is a lot of disco and house kind of aesthetics being sort of translated to a pop sound. A lot of Dua Lipa's stuff recently is like a good kind of comparison point. But I think the thing that makes Jessie Ware and this album in particular so different is that the instrumentals are really, really refined and just good. Like every single bass line on this album is so good, and every single drum programming and the little synthesizer touches and every track on this album has its own specific flair, but it all feels part of this whole sort of 80s inspired, club music inspired. It's just this is the album that they told Chromatica not to worry about. It's just like really scratching that disco pop itch in a way that very few things have scratched for me. I even, and I don't really want to just bring other people into this to compare and dunk on them, but like one of the things I kept thinking of listening to this album is how this album is essentially what I really wanted Dedicated to be. Not that I need to unnecessarily dunk on Carly Rae Jepsen because I do like Dedicated, but I think this album it gives me what I wanted out of like a Carly Rae Jepsen album so clearly, with the incredible hooks and the really great vocals and the just kind of fun vibe to it all. And I think if you're looking for summery disco music right now, you can't go. I mean, it's kind of a shame that this has to come out now because in general I've been listening to less disco this year than I ever have in a long time, because this is just a very non-disco time in American history, and it feels very kind of inappropriate for the current mood of everything. But I've been listening to this on my walks recently, and it puts a damn pep in my step. It's really fucking good. And I love this Jessie Ware album. It is well deserving of the hype it has gotten.
All right, folks, that'll do it for part 1 of this little July catch-up cast episode. We'll be back with you guys in just a day or two. Even by the time you're listening to this, part 2 could be out already, as we want to split this episode up because the original runtime was about 2 hours 40 minutes, and we just reasonably could not put out a pod that long. We'll go a little over 2 hours, but 2 hours 40, that's just too much. So hopefully you enjoy part 1. Part 2, we'll have album discussions on various July and late June releases, including records from Gulch, Illuminati, Hotties, Haim, and especially Protomartyr, and many more. So please make sure to listen to part 2 when it comes out in the next day or two, and hopefully you enjoyed part 1 of our little July cast catch up. And all right, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye bye.